When we think of Cleopatra, we often imagine the image of a dazzling queen wrapped in golden robes, ruling from palace in ancient Alexandria and captivating the most powerful men of Rome. But behind that famous image lies a story of politics, intelligence, and survival in one of the most turbulent periods of ancient history. Cleopatra VII Cleopatra, the last active ruler of Ptolemaic kingdom of Egypt, lived in a world where empires rose and fell and where one's fate could change with a single alliance. Her life was more than just a tale of beauty and romance. It was a story of power, diplomacy, and ambition. To truly understand Cleopatra's legacy, we must go beyond myths and movies and look at her as the ruler she really was. She inherited a fragile kingdom torn by internal conflict and heavily dependent on Rome. Yet she managed to keep her throne for over 2 decades, using not only her charisma but also her intelligence and political skill. Cleopatra spoke several languages, commanded fleets, and made daring political moves that influenced the entire Mediterranean world. At the same time, her story reflects the final chapter of Egypt's independence. With Cleopatra's reign came the end of thousands of years of pharaonic rule. After her death, Egypt became a province of the Roman Empire, marking the end of an era that shapes human civilization for millennia. In this exploration, we will trace Cleopatra's journey from her royal childhood to her dramatic downfall. We will look at her relationships with Julius Caesar and Mark Antony, not as romantic tales, but as strategic partnerships. We will see how she tried to preserve Egypt's sovereignty in a world dominated by Rome, and how her death changed the course of ancient history. Cleopatra's story is not just a tale of a queen who ruled long ago. It is a story of a woman who understood power in its purest form and used every tool she had to wield it. And even though more than 2,000 years have passed, her name still stands as a symbol of ambition, intelligence, and resilience. Cleopatra was born in 69 BCE in the great city of Alexandria, a place that stood as a beacon of knowledge and culture in the ancient world. She was a member of the Ptolemaic dynasty, a Greek family descended from one of Alexander the Great's generals, Ptolemy the First's daughter. For nearly 3 centuries, the Ptolemies ruled Egypt, adopting many Egyptian traditions while keeping their Greek language and customs. This mix of cultures made Alexandria one of the most cosmopolitan cities of its time, filled with scholars, traders, and diplomats from across the Mediterranean. Cleopatra grew up surrounded by luxury and learning, but her path to the throne was nothing but easy. Her father, Ptolemy XII, known as Auletes, was an unpopular ruler who relied heavily on Roman support to keep his crown. When he died in 51 BCE, he left the throne to his daughter, Cleopatra VII, and her younger brother, Ptolemy XIII, who were expected to rule jointly following Egyptian custom. Cleopatra was only 18, but even at a young age, she showed an independent and determined spirit. Soon after becoming queen, Cleopatra faced political chaos. Her brother's advisors plotted against her, and she was forced to flee Alexandria. Many would have given up, but Cleopatra was not one to surrender easily. She began gathering supporters in Syria, planning her return to power. Meanwhile, events in Rome were shaping her fate in ways she could not imagine. Julius Caesar, Rome's most powerful leader, arrived in Egypt in pursuit of his rival Pompey, who had fled there after a civil war in Rome. It was during this time that Cleopatra made one of the most famous and daring moves in history. According to legend, she had herself secretly smuggled into Caesar's palace, rolled up in a carpet. When she emerged before him, she presented herself not just as a posed queen, but as a rightful ruler seeking justice. Caesar, impressed by her intelligence and charm, agreed to support her claim to the throne. With Caesar's help, Cleopatra regained power after a bloody civil war against her brother's forces. Ptolemy XIII died in a battle, and Cleopatra was restored as a queen, this time ruling alongside another younger brother, Ptolemy XIV. But Cleopatra was the real power behind the throne. She had proven herself as a strategist and a leader who could navigate both Egyptian traditions and Roman politics. Her alliance with Caesar not only secured her position but also changed the course of her life forever. After Cleopatra regains her throne with Caesar's support, the two rulers quickly formed a strong political and personal bond. Their alliance was not just about love or attraction, it was a partnership built on mutual benefit and ambition. Cleopatra saw in Caesar a chance to secure her kingdom and strengthen Egypt's position in the ancient world. Caesar, on the other hand, views Cleopatra as a valuable ally in Rome's efforts to expand its influence over Egypt, one of the richest lands in the Mediterranean. During Caesar's stay in Alexandria, Cleopatra gave birth to a son, Ptolemy XV, who came to be known as Caesarion, meaning Little Caesar. Although Caesar never publicly acknowledged him as his son, Cleopatra made sure that the entire kingdom recognized Caesarion's royal lineage. She even had coins minted with both her image and Caesar's, a bold statement of their partnership and her political confidence. Cleopatra accompanied Caesar to Rome in 46 BCE, where she stayed in one of his luxurious villas across the Tiber River. Her arrival caused a sensation. The Romans were fascinated and scandalized by the exotic queen, who was said to be incredibly intelligent, well-educated, and fluent in several languages. Cleopatra's presence at Roman banquets, her golden throne, and her regal demeanor made her stand out among Roman women who lived much more restrained lives. For Cleopatra, this visit was more than just a personal journey, it was a political mission. She wanted Rome to recognize her as Egypt's legitimate ruler and to secure Caesar's continued support for her dynasty. However, Cleopatra's time in Rome came to an abrupt end when Julius Caesar was assassinated in 44 BCE by a group of senators who feared his growing power. His death threw Rome into chaos once again, and Cleopatra, fearing for her safety and her son's future, returned to Egypt. Back in Alexandria, she focused on consolidating her rule. She made Caesarion her co-ruler, presenting him as a rightful heir to both Egyptian and Roman legacies. Under her leadership, Egypt remained stable and prosperous, avoiding the turmoil that engulfed much of the Mediterranean world. But Cleopatra knew that her kingdom's fate was still tied to Rome's politics. With Caesar dead, new rivals were rising to power, Mark Antony and Octavian, Caesar's adopted son. The struggle between them would soon draw Cleopatra back into the heart of Roman affairs, leading to one of the most dramatic and legendary stories of all time. After Julius Caesar's death, the Roman world plunged into political turmoil. Cleopatra understood that Egypt's survival dependent on strong alliances, and she soon turned her attention to Mark Antony, one of Caesar's closest allies and part of the second triumvirate ruling Rome. Their meeting in 41 BCE was carefully orchestrated. Cleopatra arrived in a luxurious barge on the Nile, adorned in gold, purple, and precious gems, creating an image of divine royalty. This dramatic entrance was more than spectacle. It was a strategic display of power and charm that captivated Antony immediately. Cleopatra and Antony formed both a political and romantic partnership. Egypt provided Antony with financial support, troops, and supplies for his campaigns in the east, while Antony offered Cleopatra protection and influence in Rome's political arena. Their relationship produced 3 children, further cementing the alliance between Egypt and Antony. Cleopatra skillfully positioned herself as a co-ruler, emphasizing her authority in both domestic and foreign affairs, while Antony relied on her resources to strengthen his campaigns against Roman rivals. However, their union created tension in Rome. Octavian, Caesar's adopted heir, portrayed Antony as a traitor, seduced by a foreign queen, undermining Roman values. Propaganda painted Cleopatra as a dangerous temptress, while Antony's reputation suffered. The stage was set for an epic clash between East and West, politics and personal ambition. Cleopatra's involvement in Roman affairs was not normal for a foreign ruler, and she navigated the delicate balance between loyalty to her kingdom and entanglement in Roman civil wars. Ultimately, the relationship between Cleopatra and Antony became inseparable from the larger political conflict. Their combined forces would challenge Octavian for control in the Roman world, culminating in the decisive naval battle in Actium in 31 BCE. Cleopatra's role was not passive. She was a strategist, a ruler, and a symbol of Egypt's enduring power. Her alliance with Antony was a defining chapter in her life, highlighting her skill in diplomacy, leadership, and survival amidst the difficulties of ancient politics. The alliance between Cleopatra and Mark Antony, while powerful, ultimately faced overwhelming opposition from Octavian, who was determined to consolidate control over Rome and eliminate rivals. In 31 BCE, their forces met Octavian's in the decisive naval battle of Actium off the western coast of Greece. Antony commanded the Roman fleet while Cleopatra led the Egyptian ships, demonstrating the deep integration of their military and political efforts. Despite their preparation, Octavian's forces were strategically superior, and the battle ended in catastrophic defeat for Antony and Cleopatra. After Actium, Antony and Cleopatra retreated to Egypt, their situation increasingly desperate. Octavian's army advanced, and morale within their ranks faltered. Antony received false news that Cleopatra had died, prompting him to take his own life by falling on his sword. Cleopatra, devastated by Antony's death and determined not to be paraded in Roman triumph, chose her own fate. Ancient sources describe her final act as an elegant and deliberate suicide, often depicted as allowing an asp to bite her, though historical accounts vary on the exact method. Her death in 30 BCE marked the end of Ptolemaic dynasty and the last great period of independent Egyptian rule.